Thank you to our final patrons, Strawbones, Red Wolf 4765, and Midnight Gemlord. Now, before I come to this breakdown / discussion on Chapter 87 of Four Knights of the... Please, if I leave your own thoughts on the chapter in the comment section down below, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, make sure you hit that little notification bell to miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do a Patreon down below. You can support for as little as $1 a month, getting exclusive videos, early content, and more. Also, I now have memberships on the channel, so you can join, become a channel member, get things like exclusive access to exclusive emojis, early content, and more. Now, let's hop into last week's poll. So, last week I ended up asking y'all a pretty simple question. Chapter 86 was essentially just like all shipping stuff, like all shipping stuff. So I wanted to question y'all. Out of the many characters that we now have as somewhat part of the main cast that are also not already married or in a consistent relationship, who did you want to see get into a ship next? I gave you 5 options. I gave you Gawain, Donny, Nasiens, Chion, and Jade. And are we real? I'm proud of the one Jade fan out there. I'm not sure. It's 2%. But the one Jade fan out there that actually cared enough to give him a vote. I'll give you credit. Y'all care. Which makes y'all better than me. I was so close to not even putting him on the poll. It was a 50-50 shot of whether or not Jade would actually end up on the poll. I was like, what if I just made it 4 options? What if I just made it similar? Because I don't think anyone, and logistically, this makes sense, because I didn't really think anyone was going to vote for him. And out of 95 votes, I'm assuming only like 1 or 2 people did, because the majority of the votes went to Gawain, the Rizzler, because apparently she deserves some love. You know, I agree, right? Like, it's kind of weird that every single one of our other cast members, or at least titular cast members, aka the Four Knights of the Apocalypse, have love interests. One that Gawain is also actually interested in, but like she's just lonely. And I know she's very recently introduced to the narrative, even more recent than Tristan, who, ironically enough, is also a pretty recent addition to our cast. Yeah, I can definitely see why people are fans of Gawain and want her to get some loving in there. I get it. And then for the runner-up, Big Papa Nasiens, like, obviously, last chapter kind of alluded to the fact that bro's feeling mad lonely right now, mad betrayed, if you will. If he was kind of suffering in the streets, if you know what I'm saying. So I'm glad that at least 19% of y'all were like, let's give this boy some love, because he's obviously not getting it from Percival. And then the next one up after that was the Donners, the Dizzler. I feel like Donny is. I'm once again not exactly sure what Donny's path is, right? Because I don't think Gawain, like, I was initially like, Gawain. But I was like, wait a second, Gawain likes women. So I highly doubt that. So now I'm wondering, man, Donny, who you got? You got Nasiens? Like, is that it? Are y'all two just going to have to make that stuff work? I don't know. Then, in the last place, or no, second to last place, with 4%, was Chion. And like I write some of these polls with specific intentions. Like, admittedly, I don't want to manipulate y'all, but sometimes I throw it out there in a light sprinkle. And I was like, someone needs to love him. I guess I wouldn't. And unsurprisingly, only 4% of y'all decided that he needs some love. And you know, who knows? Maybe some love will make him go normal or something like that. Like, maybe all he needs is the real superpower of teamwork. I'm sorry, that was the wrong series. We aren't wrong genre, but regardless, maybe he needs a little loving in his life to get his life back in order. However, thank you guys so much for participating in last week's poll, and make sure you get your input in on tomorrow's poll, dropping at 12 p.m. Make sure your input is included for next week's review. Now, let's hop into Chapter 87. What's up, guys? I got the pencil here, and here we are to do a breakdown and review of Chapter 87 of Four Knights of the which is known as Guinevere. And once again, like, I sit down, right? I sit back, because there are constantly comments being left. And I don't blame y'all. Like, feel free to correct me. The reason I'm happy to have a comment section, because you guys can correct me and inform me on things I just don't know. And I always appreciate that. And I 100% get it, right? By all means and reason, especially with this chapter in the books, Gawain might as well be pretty much a 70-year-old woman. Does that change the fact that she's built like a toddler? No. Does that change the fact that in reality, she is 12? At least to me, no. Do I fully understand how the reproduction cycle works? Yes. Do I fully understand that times have changed? Yes. Do I fully understand all the historical context that is required to make a series like this? Yes. Do I no. No. It's still going to be weird to me, no matter what. And I'm still going to complain. Especially because it's a major plot point. Like, at least, this is going to sound bad, but at least with Elaine, it was background noise. For the most part. For the most part. Like, yeah, Bond was the main character. Elaine was also his main motivation. But I didn't have to look at it that much. And it wasn't, like, overly weird until we saw the image of her with, like, a 9-month baby bump. That still scars my retina to this day. But, like, I guess my big... Let me just hop into the chapter itself. We'll get to it when we get to it, right? So, we open up, and we do get to see that, the young duo, because I'm going to call them a duo until made otherwise, the young duo ends up in this really nice, this beautiful inn. And we see Lance, he's, vibing alone on the couch, and he's kind of a little bit confused, like, what am I doing here? Why am I doing here? What is going on? And I don't know, it's a really nice couch. But with that being the case, we do get to see that Gawain, I'm going to mix up Gawain and Guinevere so much. I'm going to keep that one in. Let's see how much I mess up in the future. But let's see. Guinevere explains that, oh, I just came to the kingdom of Leonis yesterday with my maid. She's out right now. This is sort of uncomfortable couch. I ain't even gonna lie to you. I can find and feel every single one of my vertebrae right now. Lance, shut up. Oh, now that I'm all alone at the inn, don't think of trying anything. See, I'm not even gonna... It's weird. Like, I get it. Once again, dude, do I have the discussion now? Like, it... Admittedly, Lance is also pretty darn young. At least, once again, I'm old, so be it. But, like, either way, it's bad, right? Like, we think Jericho's bad. I don't know. So far, I haven't seen any, like, but Lance is a fully strong, reproductive adult. Like, haven't seen any of that for Lance. We all agree that Jericho's a case, right? Like, word for word, bar for bar. Like, I don't think any of us have to really argue over that one. Jericho is the premier leader of one of the 7 cases of the 7 deadly cases. Like, we know that. So, like, no matter which way we flip it, it's weird. At least in my mind. And, like, because look at it this way, right? Either she's 71 mentally, and that makes it a 71-year-old. I don't want to say the big G word, but you know what I'm thinking of. G-wording a 16-year-old. Or it's a 16-year-old conversing and it's some C word that I'm forgetting. I'm forgetting the word. But doing a certain thing with a 12-year-old. And, like, the thing is, it didn't have to be this way. It did not have to be weird. Like, we could just hold off. It did not have to be weird. Nakaba went out of his way to make it weird. Like, and I don't get why. Like, that's the thing. That's my biggest issue. Like, make her the same age as Lance. What is the difference? Why does she have to be 4 years younger? Is that a thing in lore that I just don't know about? Even if so, you can break lore. Something tells me that Seven Deadly Sins, the original series, does not stick word for word, bar for bar to original Arthurian lore. So, like, I can't even say, oh, well, Nakaba's just being a lore buff by making her 4 years younger than Lance and having... It's still weird. Like, I feel like some choices you make as an author are choices for your own weird preferences. Like, and sometimes you just want to make things weird. Like, I don't know, I write stories, but, like, whenever I think of something, and I'm like, whoa, I don't think that would go over well, I don't do it. And this is one of those things that if I thought of it, I would be like, no, let's just not. Because the thing is, once again, we could just avoid this entire conversation by either making them the same age or making them the same age but older. Like, physically, so it matches mentally. Because regardless, it's still weird. I don't know. I get it. Once again, these are fully functioning, quote-unquote, well, a literal mental adult in one case with Gwen. She's just apparently straight up 71 mentally. Because that's when she knows her death is at. Bada bing, bada boom. And Lance is 16. Lance is 16 mentally flat out. That's it. And that's weird. Or if we're just going by their physicals, is if we're talking about a versus battle here, we're talking about the raw stats in terms of their physicals. Her being 12 and him being 16 is weird. Yes. Context, blah, blah, mythology, lore, whatever. I don't care. It's weird. If you don't find it weird, that's fine. More power to you. But if you ever want me to stop complaining about it, someone's gonna have to bludgeon me over the head before I stop caring. Because I just think there's no need to. It's like once again, it's like Elaine all over again. Like you didn't have to make it weird, but you went out of your way to make it weird. Sorry, getting too caught up in discussion. We're still on the first page. Let me hop back into the chapter. So we see that Lance is like, ew, you're disgusting. You're 12. Why would I ever even think of anything like that? And why'd you need to change clothes anyway? And fun fact, check out the live reaction on Patreon or by becoming a member. And you would see my disgusting reaction. Weird. I don't know. Don't humans wear frilly stuff on real special occasions? Fine. Just sit down and tell me, yeah, but today's a real special day. Yeah, I don't. The second page is just weird. I don't know. It's just, like, look at the size comparison between the two. Like, one, I 100% agree with everyone else. I put Elaine and Bond also in the 7 deadly cases. And one of the biggest reasons for that is, while they are admittedly two fully consenting adults, their size difference is just weird. Like, Bond is 7 foot something. Elaine is 4 foot something, I'm pretty sure. But this is even worse. Like, look at Gwen being the size of Lance's arm. Like, he is massive next to her. It's just, I don't know, weird imagery. Weird reason. The whole chapter is just weird. Like, remember last chapter I had to tiptoe around some stuff? I feel like I need to tiptoe around this entire chapter. Like, it's just weird. It's just, like, I feel like, hold on, let me look up some synonyms for weird, because I feel like I'm going to be saying that a lot throughout this review. So give me a second. It's very eerie. I don't know. It just feels wrong. It's pretty awful, creepy, a curious choice to make, awfully eccentric, and pretty unnerving. I don't know. It's just weird. Though we did get to see the supposed special day that Gwen is so hyped about, that she's wearing all these weird frilly clothes for, is because she's finally getting to put her hands on the real flesh and blood Lancelot. She dreamed of him. And now this dream has finally come true. Lance, once again, I get you're very emotionally repressed, dude, and you'll probably take Then again, you didn't react positively to Jericho, but I guess that's your sister, so that's probably weird. But I don't know, this is pretty weird too. Like, Lance having such calm and, like, him being at all intrigued with Gwen is also weird. Like, I don't know. Once again, it takes, like, I love Lance as a character. I think he's fantastic from his... I do think he kind of jacks up the narrative just a little bit. But outside of that, I think he's a really cool character with a great backstory, and I think all that is wonderful. And I think his future is going to be super interesting. But this part... I don't know. I'm going to need some time skips. I'm going to need some time skips before my brain just, like, finally allows me to, like, just shut it down. Like, I hope I can just forget it. Like, straight up, we're on chapter 200-something of 4 nights, and a 4-year time skip has happened. Preferably an 8-year time skip, if I'm being real. Like, an 8-year time skip has happened, and then bada bing, bada boom, I can just be like, oh, yeah, I love the relationship between these two characters. You get to see it develop, but then the moment I say develop, I have horrific flashbacks of these chapters. But regardless, apparently, we see that Lance just doesn't care about the fact that this little girl has supposedly dreamed of him all her life, and now is desperate to hold him. She's just like, oh, yeah, okay. I guess that's cool. Well, where are you from? Lance, I think... Don't get me wrong, buddy. Like, I may be misinterpreting the situation here just a tiny little bit. But I think there are more pressing things to worry about. Like, what do you mean by you dreamt of me? Like, you typically don't dream about people you haven't met. Like, I'm trying to think. At least I barely remember my dreams. And y'all can corroborate this or disagree with me in the comments down below. But I've never dreamt about somebody and then met them in real life. It's always been vice versa. I've met someone in real life, and then on the rare occasion that I do dream and I remember what I dreamed, then maybe they'll show up in there. So Lance being so calm with the whole idea of like, oh yeah, I guess you just dream me up. Like, I don't know why he's so casual about it. I mean, I get it. It's a world of magic. But I don't know. I feel like I'd be twice as paranoid on a world of magic. Because I'd be like, hey, what magic did you use to do that? But Lance is like, whatever. And he asks where she's from. And we see that she's from Cameliard, a small country not too far from the original Camelot.
Huh? Huh?
So that essentially just pulls out all of our, Guinevere is the third cousin, or I say a second cousin, of Tristan, and is actually the child of the two new royals of the nearby kingdom, which happens to be Guinevere and Veronica. Just gone right out the window, literally like fired out the window with maximum velocity. That's not the case at all. So she just randomly has future magic, and I guess it is entirely possible. It's not like there is a real precedent in the bloodline. All we know is that Barger had future magic. I don't think Denzel had future magic. He was just vibing. So who knows? We were going with it because it was a nearby kingdom she was supposedly from. She appeared to be royalty, and also the fact that we know there was a nearby kingdom recently made by Veronica and Guinevere, and we know that to some degree magic is hereditary. But guess not. I guess Guinevere just has better magic because plot. And that works, look at Percy. Percy literally is the definition of, oh yeah, I'm just better than you because plot. So I can't necessarily get too mad at that one. Though Cameliard as a concept, very, very interesting. I'm assuming this is the kingdom, but then again, it can't be, right? Because I want to say Cameliard is where Gawain is from too. But we know that if that were the case, then Cameliard's king would have to be Arthur's stepbrother. And if Arthur's stepbrother is Cameliard's king, that would have to make Gwen and Gawain siblings. I'm not saying it's impossible. Ironically enough, could chalk this up to just same face syndrome, but like slice off Gawain's or Gwen's hair, and you do get Gawain in her tiny form. So it does technically work out. Once again, same face syndrome is pretty common in Naka, but like look at all the female characters and they kind of all have the same face. You just got to recolor the hair. So with that being the case, I'm not exactly sure, but if Cameliard ends up being the first place that they visit just because of ties to Gawain or ties to Gwen, I wouldn't be too shocked just because it seems to be building up our next major location, because Gawain's hometown has been mentioned a couple times and alluded to, but we never got a name for it. So this ends up being Gawain's hometown. However, the only thing is, I would wonder, like, why wouldn't Gawain know about her sister tagging along or becoming part of Leonis and coming here? I don't know. Very, very interesting, if you were to ask me. And there's no way Arthur doesn't know about this kingdom, right? Like, say hypothetically his stepbrother isn't the king of it, he has to know. I'm pretty sure he's, like, constantly crying over the ruins of the original Camelot. So he has to know about Cameliard. So I'm intrigued to learn more about this place. Once again, Britannia, one thing I will give Four Knights above this previous series 100% is that Britannia itself and its many locations are getting a lot more fleshed out and explored as compared to the original series. The original series was very much so built on a wider scale of things, where like you learned about the different realms and general gigantic locations. Like you learned all of the realms there pretty much, like Mortal Realm, Fairy Realm, Megadozer, all the stuff like that. Meanwhile, in Four Knights, it seems like Naka was very focused on expanding on what we already have, while sort of like throwing in new concepts and worlds here and there, like the world beyond, this new dimension of Camelot, stuff like that. Like, I'll admit, I like what Four Knights is doing on that front. I do. And we do get to see that apparently, according to Lance, in his own perspective, Guinevere essentially guessed that they were looking for Gawain. She didn't actually, like, really know, at least based on what he saw of her reactions. And realistically, he at first assumed that with that being all she could do, she must have some sort of search type magic that allows you to read minds, something investigative. That's why he pretty much immediately asked her the moment they met, hey, can you read minds, or are you reading my mind? And we see that Guinevere actually looks away, and under Lance's inquisitive eye, which once again looks so much like his father's, man, I really want to see Bond, alright? Like, I love King, and Diane's cool too, but I really want to see Bond. But with that being the case, we see that apparently Lance believes that having search type magic is one thing, but being able to guess exactly where she was, down to the exact location and time, that's a That's a little bit much. That's a little bit crazy. Your magical power lets you see into the future. It's an oracle type, the rarest of all the 9 types, isn't it? And you're telling me hero type isn't that rare? Like, you would think, because hero type is a combination of multiple. Like, you literally get the whole kit and caboodle with hero type. Like, what magic do you not have access to? Like, maybe illusion, obviously oracle, maybe. Because let's see if we had to classify. Let's just go with the list, because Lance does give us the list. He says destruction type. I'd say Percival's magic hope falls under that. Let's see, shifting type, maybe. I mean, his magic itself can shift and shapeshift and take different forms. He himself can't, unless Despair Percy actually transforms him. But I say it also kind of counts as a shift type, because it's shifting itself, the environment, stuff like that. Healing type, obviously it's a healing type. Mental type, or no, search type. Remember, for some reason, somehow, the mini Percys knew what to look for when they arrived at Anne's hometown, and immediately sought out the Coffin of Eternal Darkness. So it obviously has some search type magic in there. Mental type, notably this one is a bit up in the air, like whether or not, because it has like its own mental fortitude, as in it itself is sentient to a certain degree, Percy's magic, but I'm not sure if that's necessarily mental type magic. Like, I'd assume invasion in its many variants would technically maybe be a mental type, but then again, those could also fall under deception type. So maybe mental type has anything to do with the mind. I'm not exactly sure about that one, but let's see. Destruction, shift, healing, search, stealth type, enchantment type. So 5. So you're telling me people having 5 of the 9 magic types, or wait, however many there are, someone having like nearly 5 over half of the magic types is less rare than someone having 1 of the magical types, which is oracle type. I get it, like oracle is extremely broken and rare, but that's kind of crazy to me that there are more Percys in the world than there are Bartras and Gawains. I don't know. Not Gawain. See, look at that. Guinevere's. So I don't know. That seems a little bit crazy. And we see that, yeah, it is 9 types. I don't know why my mind blanked. But we see when Lance questions her on this, she just responds like, oh, when you have more than 4 of the 9 types, it's a hero type, right? How did you know that? And, like, Lance, I don't know. Like, I feel like that one isn't too top secret. Like, it's a common term. Like, Pelgard knew it was a hero type. You know it's a hero type. Like, I feel like this is just common knowledge. Like, maybe she's just royalty and was taught about that stuff. I don't know. I feel like that would be, like, basic curriculum. It'd kind of be like in our world if you didn't know about, like, the elements, I suppose. But then again, that's even more simple. So I'm not shocked she knows about that. However, with that being the case, we see that Lance is like, hey, let me be real with you. I'm not necessarily interested in you. I want to hear more about your magic. And Gawain cuts him off before he can even say the magic word and is like, kaleidoscope. This magical power of mine lets me dream of future events clearly as reality. What? It's not some fuzzy or vague revelation like the omens of His Majesty, former King Bartra of Leonis. I can clearly see and hear who does what, where, when, and what they say. Alright. Interesting. Weird, but interesting. I'm not sure which power I would say is, like, objectively better. Like, she goes into a whole discussion on that later, so I think I'll touch on that when we get there. However, the power on its own is very interesting. Admittedly, it's a good twist to separate it from Bartra's power. Like, the vague omen versus the certainty. It's very, very unique. I like it. I like it a lot. However, we do get to see that with this being the case, Lance is like, what? Like, that's insane. Quite obviously. And it would be pretty much fundamentally insane, because that means that she is hypothetically an even better asset than Bartra ever was. If she can see stuff word for word and bar for bar, then everything's going to be great. And with that being the case, we see that apparently this kind of magic has just never been heard of. And this comes from the guy who was very likely trained or absorbed or something with the Lady of the Lake. So he should probably be extremely knowledgeable about the many types of magic. Plus, he got all the story of Seven Deadly Sins. straight to DVD downloaded in his head. So he knows a whole ton about many different types of magic. So him never hearing of magic like this is kind of crazy. And we see that apparently the weakness, the counterbalance of this magic is not only just that it's only a dream, but also the fact that it really is limited. It only knows what is going to happen to Gwen in Gwen's like general location, like what she can perceive and what happens to her or around her general area. Unlike Omen, which will kind of just let you know what's going to happen on a much more massive scale. The scale can be quite randomized though. Like you could have either the world-shaking revelation and realization of the Four Knights of the Apocalypse, or you could have a traitor coming in and stabbing somebody. Or I guess not stabbing, but like freezing somebody to death. Like the scale, it can change a lot. So it's interesting. I'd say, like playing riddles would be annoying, but I think it's safer. I think I'd prefer that, especially considering it's on a broader scale. Limiting someone to just a tiny piece of perspective is very, very dangerous, especially considering what little piece of perspective can really do to jack up a perception of an entire situation. If you can only see a certain angle to certain things, you're going to have biases towards it. Meanwhile, if an omen comes out, you're going to be biased towards the answer you get. But other than that, the information itself that's provided in the omen is not balanced. And much more falls on you, the individual, to determine whether or not or how said omen is going to work out. Meanwhile, with Kaleidoscope, it's kind of just like, well, according to my very own eyes, it happens this way, but then someone could make a thing change or something like that. And with that being the case, Guinevere goes on to further explain she knows everything that will happen until she dies at the age of 71. She's been watching at random since she was 3, and her father tried hiding her power as much as he could, but then the rumors spread, and that's why she ended up coming to Leonis. So with that being the case, why doesn't she try to alter things? Like, is she in the same problem or case that Aaron is in, where like no matter what she alters, it'll end up down the same path? Because like she's saying as if everything has already been set in stone, but obviously, unless this is like some like universe, I don't know how it would work. Like she's relying on information she has from the future to do things in the past. But like in the original timeline where she didn't know where Lance was immediately going to be, did she literally just by accident stumble across him? Did they have the same interaction that they did have in chapter 56, or was that not the case? Was there another interaction that they had? Like, do these changes, are they just superficial or are they not? Like, for instance, right now, she knows she's going to get kidnapped. Like, that's kind of where the chapter ends. I know I'm leaping all around this chapter, but that's kind of where the chapter ends. But like, if she knows that, why not tell Lance, hey, Ironside or whatever is going to show up and kidnap me, take me to Meliodas, and put me under your elite guard. I will tell you everything I know about the future, so we can try and change it. With that being entirely possible, I'm not sure why she doesn't. Does she think that's going to get Lance hurt more? Like, no offense, but if Arthur couldn't get the job done against Lance and Meliodas individually, what is he going to do against both of them at the same time? Or at least Mel individually, who seems to be more than powerful enough to contest them. And Arthur is still running away, and his men are still afraid of 7 deadly sins tier threats. So I don't know, Gwen. Maybe you should be a little bit more proactive. If you're going to be proactive enough to go out of your way and change the timeline, assumingly in certain ways, such as going up and treating Lance as you do right now, maybe you should try and treat Lance not just as Lance, but also as the one guiding key to your safety and the biggest change in the timeline. I don't know. She acts as if everything in the future is set in stone, but at least seemingly by her own actions, they are not set in stone. We're in a very weird position right now when it comes to like why Gwen isn't doing anything. I think we're gonna get some sort of elaboration down the line, like one way or another we're gonna find out that, oh well, actually every single time she tries to change the timeline, her dreams only get worse or something like that, like they don't actually get better, or she realizes that no matter what minor or major changes she tries to make, she still ends up walking down the same path, like no matter what, which also could be happening. But like, even with that, I'm going to need some clarification, because right now, I just see prime opportunity to just bang, the timeline gone, because you get to have so much freedom and flexibility by knowing what's already going to happen, especially from your own first person perspective. If you know exactly where you're going to be at any exact moment in time, change that. Butterfly effect the nonsense. See if any of these changes work. And who knows, maybe Gwen has. Maybe she has tested it. But it's still, it's very, very intriguing that this power is so so perfect yet imperfect in terms of what it can do, and so vague, which is why I need a 20-page explanation on it. Not gonna drop it right now. However, even with that being the case, I wonder why the King of Cameliard, or at least whoever Guinevere's father is, came here and was like, hey, Mel, I need you to hold on to my daughter. You to watch out for my daughter. Please, not anybody else. I get it. Like, Meliodas and Leonis should be a pretty notable stronghold, but, like, the fact that that was organized and somehow she's just hiding out in an inn and not directly under the watch and care of Meliodas, like, seems pretty weird. Like, maybe she came here, because notably she only says, that's why I came to the kingdom of Leonis. It doesn't necessarily imply that the King of Cameliard was like, hey, let me call up my old friend Mel and have him watch over you. So maybe she's just using this spot as a hiding place. But, like, with a magic this important, if you're gonna try and hide her anyway, you might as well just put her under the group of people that could actually, you know, use her power and also properly defend her. Leaving her here in a kingdom that obviously has a pretty lax entry and exit policy like Leonis isn't necessarily the best of situations unless she's being guarded by powerful people. And at least at this point, she isn't. She's just a little girl wandering around with one maid and is currently staying in an inn. It's pretty lackadaisical in terms of her actual genuine security. And with that being the case, we do get to see that Gwen looks out the window and she sees someone there. And notably, I believe this is the man from last chapter that we still didn't get to see. I'm shocked Lance doesn't perceive them. Like, they must be really, really, really suppressing themselves for Lance to not notice they were being followed all the way here. And once again, Gwen, why don't you say something about this? Like, are you just, do you want to get kidnapped? Like, you have the most powerful knight of said four Knights of the Apocalypse, the titular characters of the series, sitting right inside your inn. And he's obviously shown enough care to appear to you without any incentive already. So I think telling him, hey, I've already seen that I'm going to get kidnapped. Could you try and help me change the future by taking out this one guy who's literally posted up outside our window? I don't know. Seems a little bit strange, unless she's in an errand situation where she's tried every single timeline in the multiverse and realized that only the rumbling is the absolute perfect answer. Like, I don't know. It seems a little bit strange that she's not doing something that seems, at least to me, pretty simple. I get it, maybe you don't want to change the future too much, but wouldn't you fast track your relationship with Lance if you were safe and under his care? I don't know. Though we do get to see that I love how Lance is like, you know, being real with you, whether I believe it or not, the most important thing is you said something that no one else could know. Like, stuff that realistically should not just be guessable. That's weird. Like, and I don't necessarily blame him. That is a pretty weird detail. Like, if she were lying, one, that'd be pretty extra for a lie. Two, it wouldn't match up with how specific the knowledge she had is. And three, it wouldn't make her that useful of an asset. But Lance hangs up on this point and he's like, hey, wait a second. You said you can only guess what happens around you. So how'd you know about Gawain? And what about my old man talks? And notably, this is something that was kind of alluded to as early as chapter 56 or chapter 57, whichever they had their little previous conversation. Well, yeah, she already said that you and her become very, very close friends, and you tell her everything anyway. And once again, like, does having that information mess up the timeline? Like, I'm having, like, endgame flashbacks all over again. Because all this timeline stuff is confusing me. Because obviously, Guinevere's answer here is like, oh yeah, all I did was tell you what I'll hear from you in the future. Told you, right? I'll become your very best friend. Because I'm not saying that. It's still weird. But with that being the case, well, I love the translator's note here. Like, the translator only goes out of the way to say Jericho's punching the air right now. And that is, word for word, bar for bar, the truth. Like, I know she is itching and scratching somewhere like, something, there's a disturbance in the force. But with that being the case, like, I feel like even the slightest bits of action, like, or a slightest change in information can have massive ramifications. The butterfly effect, stuff like that. Like, a butterfly flapping its wings once or never flapping its wings ever could result in, like, massive ramifications. But this isn't like butterflies and tornadoes. This is like world-destroying beings interacting with certain world-destroying beings on certain points. And, like, in the original timeline, where Lance ended up telling Gwen how he found Gawain, how did that timeline go without Lance being told by Gwen how to, like, essentially either Gawain is happening all at once, like, legitimately she is simultaneously all the ages and none of the ages, sort of as like a transcendental time being, kind of like Mr. Mxyzptlk from DC, how they kind of just view all of time linearly, and like every single variation of them is also just them, unlike like different versions of Superman or Batman where they're like legitimately different versions. Every single different version is just like, I feel like Avatar is the wrong word, but like just Mixie in a different skin. I thought that was the case for Gwen, but apparently not. But I don't know. The whole, like, the information she has and her influencing these past events should have massive ramifications. That means her future, or at least the one she dreamed up of so far, shouldn't be constant. But shrug and disbelief. I don't know. I suppose this is just how it is. It'd be like that when it'd be like that sometimes. And we see once again, Lance can only be flustered by the idea of some form of very close friendship. I'm just gonna keep saying that. Very close friendship. Because the only things that we've really seen break Lance out of this cool, calm, analytical facade he has going up is literally obviously getting assaulted. And love. So there you go. If you want to break Lance, tell him you think he's a great guy, and he'll break down blushing and freak out. Which reminds me a lot more of his mother than his father, if I'm being completely honest. And once again, this is like, Lance, I feel like this is immediately go inform your uncle information. Like, straight up, okay, be like, oh, thank you, Gwen. Thank you so much for that information. Bam, knock you out, drag you to the castle and be like, hey, Uncle Mel, boy, do I have something to show you. And just immediately get her to snitch everything. Like, have her tell the whole plot. I need a word for word, bar for bar, plot for plot description of what's going to happen in the future. The best we can. To avoid problems, the best we can. But no. And I guess, like, once again, when you're a 16-year-old who was locked away for 3 years of your life and sort of spent the last 3 years traveling and doing your best trying to be a good leader, yeah, romance is probably the last thing on your mind, so it probably would be the only thing that can catch it lacking. And we see that Gwen just finds this funny. Once again, because I guess mentally she's 71. Like, she knows life up until her death. And it's definitely changed her perspective. I doubt she has the mind of a regular 12-year-old, but that just makes it even weirder. Like, admittedly, she does have the information, but isn't this kind of weird? Like, once again, I'm not saying the big G word, but this kind of does seem like G wording. Because Lance, in the original timeline, once again, I keep bringing up the original timeline, like, that's what I'm assuming Gwen is seeing. In this original timeline, these two just met naturally and fell in love. Meanwhile, Gawain is sort of just setting these ideas up in his head, and I get it, because it's an eventuality, but I don't know, it still falls in that weird, nasty moral gray zone where it's like, I don't know, are you, like, would you be mortally, like, if, I'm trying to think, right, if you went back in time and met your significant other, and, like, not just went back in time, you went back in time and inhabited yourself, your younger self, and then proceed to tell your significant other from the future that you two are destined to be together, blah, blah, blah. You keep essentially kind of low-key gaslighting them into becoming your significant other, when they are still a child, or just turned into an adult, because medieval times 16 years old was 18 years old equivalent. I'm not sure. This still seems wrong. Like, sure, it's quote unquote meant to happen, but still, it's kind of in a weird, sticky, nasty situation. Like, I don't think it's weird to say. I feel like that's not 100% legal. Like, I feel like that would count as G wording. But once again, tell me what you guys think. Like I said, this chapter is just weird in terms of all of its implications, what it does, and like, not completely why. I don't know why you went out of your way to make this so like out of line, out of pocket. It's just strange. And we see Lance even question it. He's like, really? Word for word? Bar for bar? Like, you think I'm really just gonna say, oh yeah, sure, I guess that's the case, just because you drop it on me like that? And Gwen proceeds to literally say, the future I see is set in stone. I never miss a mark. Yes, I am going to gaslight you into being that. Well, I don't know, like, why can't this timeline's Lance have some autonomy? Maybe the original timeline Lance wanted to fall in love with you, but what if this one didn't? I guess, ironically enough, there is, speaking of Endgame, there's a situation where this kind of works. Like, Peter Quill and the Gamora situation. The Gamora from the past does not know about the feelings she develops for Quill in the future. But Quill, who is from the future, is now, I'm not sure what the plot of Guardians 3 is going to be. Sue me. I'm not James Gunn. But with that being the case, I wonder, like, are they going to do a similar thing where it's just Chris Pratt? Nah, but where Quill is going to have to be like, yeah, Gamora, well, technically you're destined to fall in love with me because you see a couple of years down the line. Like, wouldn't that be weird if Chris Pratt was doing that? I'm sorry. If Peter Quill was doing that to Gamora, Zoe Saldana, but like, is that weird? Because it feels like it's weird to me. I don't know. So that's why I feel it's weird for Lance. Like, sure, Lance is in a world of mystical magical powers where apparently this could be word for word, bar for bar true. But still, I don't know. Especially considering she only has 9 years of experience with it. Yeah, you've probably just been following a script. But your lack of autonomy, or seemingly your unwillingness to see if you have any autonomy in this thing, is also strange. And it makes me wonder about the whole original timeline stuff and Gwen's magic. And yeah, I'm gonna have to make a whole video talking about it. But regardless, with this being the case, Lance says you're pretty confident. Like, this is only the second time we've met. There's no reason. And then Gwen proceeds to explain, I dream like it's reality. I will meet you hundreds and thousands of times. We met for the first time when you're 16. We meet in a secret tower when you're 18. You kiss me when you're 19. Pencil. Grow up. People do that. I know, but I'm still, whatever. You get it at this point. You make a name for yourself as a knight in service to the king when you're 23. Some interesting points here. One, I keep bringing up, in the original timeline, like, how did this organically happen? How are you so certain these things are going to occur? Did you literally meet in that exact same way, word for word, bar for bar, in the original timeline? And if so, where was their original timeline? And their original timeline before that? Like, I'm just genuinely a little bit kerfuffled and a little bit confused. And I'm not sure how hundreds, like, let's see, thousands, like, you have to meet every day for a couple of years to meet thousands of times. But the two biggest things that I wonder about are the secret tower. Oh no, the tower when you're 18, and this knight in service to a king when you're 23. So the tower thing, is that going to be, this has to be post Gwen's kidnapping, right? Like, this has to be in Camelot, I'm assuming, because I doubt she'd just show up in a tower anywhere near Leonis. And I don't necessarily see any towers in Leonis, but I can see Gwen being holed up in a tower while Arthur just waits for her to grow up, because he's like, ew, I'm not being weird. You're just going to go live in this tower for a while. Call you Rapunzel real quick. And the other one that has my interest even more than that one is you'll become a knight you'll make a name for yourself as a knight in service to the king when you're 25. Who's the king in this concept? Or in this phrase? Is it Meliodas? Because if that's the case, I feel like he's already made a name for himself. He's already one of the four knights of the apocalypse. So I don't think it'd be Mel. I don't think he's going to be the king of Cameliard, because I doubt they're going to go there and become in service of them, considering that is just another kingdom that we have no association of. It could be possible, but I highly doubt it. But is this alluding to Lancelot's betrayal and becoming one of the Knights of the Round, like in the original mythology? Assumedly so. Knights in service to a king, because why would you go out of your way to not specify the king? She knows who King Bartra is. She specifically went out of her way to refer to him as His Royal Majesty, King Bartra. But specifically, when she's bringing up this moment, she says, in service to the king, but not giving us the king. I'm going to assume it's Arthur here. But once again, all this information, insanely useful. Why not tell Lance this so he can avoid whatever fate is going on here? Because assuming this is not good, I don't know. Once again, this may just be Gwen being selfish. Gwen being selfish, 100%. Like, this may just be her being like, oh yeah, I know this ends in a happy love story for me, so I don't care what happens to the rest of the world. And that sounds very much like another character from a very popular franchise that a lot of people tend not to like nowadays. Yes, I'm looking at you, Sonic 06. Yes, I'm looking at you, Elise. But with that being the case, I don't know. Gwen, tell everybody what's going to happen. This seems like very important information. I don't know. Like, it's weird. And then we proceed to have this really, supposedly sad, I'm here laughing. That's twisted. But yes, I'm here laughing. Scene where Gwen proceeds to go, and then, we will, for the last time, part ways, Lancelot. Blah, blah. Wait, let me not make that sound. But until we reach the future, I didn't want to see everyone. And, Gwen, maybe you should try to avoid this future by telling Lance exactly what it is so he can prepare for it. I don't know. If I just had to take a guess, a golleander, a wonder and a whisper, like, I don't know. Maybe you should try to change the future instead of just giving up and existing with it. Especially considering we have multiple people with extreme amounts of power who probably have great influence over the future. If I had to take a guess. If I had to take a shot in the dark. Like, Gwen, what is this? I don't know why you are being so secretive. It makes no sense. Like, I get it, she said she's never missed a mark, so maybe she's trying to change the future. But once again, it seems like this is the first time she's meeting anyone of any reasonable power. Like, running into Lancelot and being in the Kingdom of Leonis, which honestly, at this point, probably has the highest concentration of magical power in the entire verse outside of Camelot itself. I don't know. Maybe they could help you change the future. Like, I don't know. Until I get some confirmation that Gwen has tried hundreds, if not thousands of times to change the future, and she just failed, and she just gave up, or previous Gwens tried hundreds of thousands of times to change the future, and it's ended up getting worse futures than the one that already happens. I'm not going to feel bad for Gwen here, because you could literally just tell the truth, or tell what's happening in the future. Do something, be useful, and not just stand there and get kidnapped, which is what essentially she does by the end of this chapter. All she does is sit back and allow herself to be kidnapped for what, at least to me, seems like no reason at this point. And but before we get into that, let's keep going. We see Lance tries to comfort her, and overall tries to just help her out. He holds her up, and he sees that pretty rough situation she's in. And notably, with this being the case, Gwen is like, you know, I never thought I would need this kind of magic. I feel like I'd go mad just having so many dreams about horrendous things. Yeah, I get it. But you know, you helped me through it just by being there. I wanted to meet you in real life someday, Lancelot. And so, the time we finally get to meet like this is now. And I can finally endure whatever hardships are about to happen. About to happen? But that's... after having such a big cry, I feel so much better. Why? Like, especially if you know that it's about to happen. Like, this is literally on the horizon, in the heart of the cards right now. If you know this is about to happen, you know exactly what's about to happen, word for word, bar for bar. You saw that shady-looking man right outside your window. Why would you not, if you're already walking with Lance, say, hey, let me tell you something real quick. I'm about to get kidnapped right now. That prophecy that you thought you had is not actually complete, and I'm probably the hope of Leonis. Please take me to the castle and see if we can do something about this future. Why wouldn't you say that? Why are you just gonna sit back and let yourself get kidnapped? Why? And admittedly, I'm gonna have to smack Lance over the back of the head too, because he does something stupid here as well. But we see that with this being the case, let me get to the end of the chapter before I start rampantly complaining. But with this being the case, we see that Lance explains that, oh yeah, tomorrow I'm gonna, and Gwen turns and says, I know, you'll head out to find Camelot, right? And Lance is like, so you saw that coming too, huh? Yeah, she can see everything coming. So I don't know why she's not doing things to... Woosah. But with this being the case, we see that Lance said, wait, you said you were going to be in Meliodas until today too, right? And Gwen asks, will you come and see me again someday? And Lance gives her one look and is like, sure, why not? Gwen smiles, everything's happy, and then she waves Lance off. And then we see, as Lance walks away, she slowly begins to shake before Lance says, definitely someday, you hear, Guinevere? And she says, yeah. But seemingly she was caught off guard by that. Like she didn't know that was going to happen. Huh? I thought you had perfect future vision. But then we get to see that Lance makes the stupid decision of leaving her. Lance. Once again, it's seemingly the most competent character in Four Knights of the Apocalypse either needs to get flustered by love or get destroyed by the plot. Because I refuse to believe Lance would be this stupid. Like this is like, there's plot-induced stupidity, and then there's Lance-induced stupidity. This is Lance-induced stupidity. Like, there's no reason Lancelot, after learning all that extremely pivotal information and being told not 2 seconds ago that something bad, something horrible was about to happen, he should just walk away and not take her to be safe. Like, I get it. Maybe Gwen has resigned to her fate. Lancelot, you shouldn't have. You shouldn't just take her word at face value. You should bring her back to the castle and snitch. Ultimately, like, I'm not going to lie. I can see the direction that Nagumo is trying to take Gwen and Lance in this chapter, and I get it. I understand. Word for word, bar for bar. I get it. Makes absolute sense. But I don't think it works. Just because any ability to see the future with any sort of clarity is immediately plot breaking, and this is plot breaking. The fact that both of these characters have either A, resigned to their fate for some off-screen reason we have not gotten yet in the case of Guinevere, or B, the most competent character in the entire series, Lancelot, decides to not investigate or be inquisitive or at least take a note of the dangers of this power if it could end up in the wrong hands, and take note of all the very ominous things Gwen has been saying about dark futures and bad things immediately happening, and just walk away. Lance isn't that stupid. I don't know. This is like the first chapter in a while of Four Knights that I'm like, yeah, this is just like a bad chapter. At least just because of what it sets up. Not only do I find this general stuff weird, right? All right, I've already complained more than I know probably some of y'all care about on the weirdness of it. But two, just the dumbness of these two characters. Like, especially Gwen is a character who may have some sort of despair complex. I may end up feeling really bad for him in the future. Maybe we'll have like a whole Aaron flashback scenario where we see all the things that he tried to do or she tried to do to try and change the future, and it all ended up failing and she ended up dying in different ways or whatever. But regardless, right now, Gwen is dumb for not asking for help, and Lance is dumb by not forcing help upon her. If she could force herself on you, you should be able to force help upon her, at least in my mind. But that's what makes me not like the chapter. I'll be real. Like, the chapter on a first read was like, ew, weird, nasty, confused. Now that I've sat down and thought about it, and now I've made a whole review about it, now it's just like, ew, weird, nasty, dumb. And I don't know. I get it. Sometimes you have to be stupid for plot, but it's too stupid. However, of course, the chapter ends with Lance being like, Uncle Meliodas should probably know about Guinevere's magic. Oh, really? Should I make a report? Maybe you should, Lance. Maybe you should make a report about a power that surpasses the former kings in utility. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. I wish I could convey an eye roll over a microphone. But I legitimately did just roll my eyes. With that being the case, we see it starts to rain. And Lance realizes that, wait a second. When the kingdom is blessed by rain, when blessed by moon, distant thunder, and rain. And he questions, that the omen isn't over yet. Oh yeah, I wonder. Guinevere's the hope, and she's getting kidnapped. I'll admit, it's different than what I thought the initial prophecy was. I suppose. Because I thought it was going to be Percy getting kidnapped and just taken away. But hey, if it's Gwen, oh well, it's her fault. She didn't ask for help. And it's Lance's fault. He let her go. Oh no. 4 out of 10 chapter. That's what I think. Please know what you guys think in the comments section down below. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure that notification bells so you miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also hit the notification down below. Use one for as low as $1. Count them $1 a month. Get exclusive videos, early content, and more. Or you could also become a member of the channel, which you can do for as low as $3 a month to get more exclusive perks. Thank you so much for watching once again, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is Back on the Pencil, writing off.